This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. Want to welcome everybody live. We're coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, where obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be traveling to play the Carolina Panthers this Sunday afternoon, the last home game for the Carolina Panthers before finishing up on the road at New Orleans and at Tampa Bay. And boy, oh boy, we got a lot of things to share with you today. We want to thank everybody on Northeast Streaming Sports, Tobacco Road Sports Radio, Facebook, YouTube Live, all the other platforms. I mean, we're on Twitter, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, you name it, we're on it. And next month, starting here in about 2 weeks, Roku TV. So a lot of good things happening on Frankly Speaking Sports. For those of you who are joining us, if you're joining us on whether it's Tobacco Road Sports Radio or Northeast Streaming Sports, want to remind you, we will have another show tomorrow night. Some of you will see it on Tobacco Road Sports Radio on Thursday. It's Frankly Speaking Panthers. We are going to have Coach Marvin Bell, who has been on quite a few times with me when I was with the Buccaneers years back. And we're looking forward to a reunion there and having a real good time breaking down the Panthers and the Buccaneers. But that'll be our last show tomorrow night before the new year. We'll take a week off, and then we'll go ahead and continue back up on January 3rd. Want to welcome everyone from the Carolina Panthers Den to our show tonight. Huge following from the Carolina Panthers Den. We want to thank everybody from there and from all the Carolina Panthers, different groups out there that listen to our show on a weekly basis. And, you know, we want to do some real quick breaking news for you. And I'll see, here we go. Two things that concern the Carolina Panthers right off the bat. If you did not hear it, kicker Larim Hajulahu, that's how you pronounce it, has been signed as a kicker off the Washington football team's practice squad. He will be our kicker the remainder of the year unless for some reason the last game Zane Gonzalez comes back. I don't see that happening. Also, AJ Bowie, Obua, however you'd like to say it, is out for the season. So AJ Bowie is out for the remainder of the season. So where we were once rich at cornerback, we are now getting a little depleted with J.C. Horn, and now you add him to the list of players that are currently on the IR. In about 25 minutes from now, folks, we are going to have New York Mets play-by-play announcer Wayne Randazzo will be coming on with us, talk about a lot of the moves. Buck Showalter, now manager of the New York Mets, Max Scherzer coming over, Eduardo Escobar now coming over. A lot of moves by the Mets. What's going to happen? What's the future going to look like? Well, Wayne Randazzo hopefully can answer a lot of our questions this evening, as basically, folks, we are exactly 2 months away from Major League Baseball based on the walkout, which we will talk a little bit about later. But, as I listen day in and day out to a lot of different shows, and, I'm one of many shows many people have the opportunity to listen to, and I'm real proud that people like to listen to me. We've talked about a lot of things this year. First thing, before we go into, a lot of people are looking forward to hearing what is the problem with the Carolina Panthers. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. But before I do that, let me see if I have this here. And we'll talk about it. But before we get into what's wrong, I'm hearing still people talking like they are acting as if they are surprised that if Sam Darnold is ready this Sunday, that he's going to start. Here on Frankly Speaking Sports, we've been saying for the last 4 weeks since Cam Newton has gotten here, I've been saying, unless he plays better than Sam was playing, there is no way in hell that Sam Darnold's going to be benched when he comes back. Whether the fans of Carolina like it or they don't like it, Sam Darnold, as I've said this before throughout the last couple weeks, is the starting quarterback on this team. Sam Darnold has to be beaten out before he can have his starting position taken away from him. And right now, no one on this team has done a better job than Sam Darnold has done. And a lot of people say, but Larry, first 3 weeks, maybe even the first 4 weeks of the season, include that Dallas game that we lost so closely. We played pretty well in these games, okay? We won 3 or 4. Then all of a sudden, the disaster broke, okay? What is wrong with this team? Why are we having the same quarterback that won 3 games for us, the first 3 games of the season? What happened afterwards? Well, I'm about to tell you what happened afterwards. And, when I look at this team, and we ask, what is wrong with the Carolina Panthers? The quarterback is not the main problem. Although it is a big piece of the puzzle, it is not the main problem on this team. And we all know, and we've all talked about the offensive line, and we're going to hit on that in a little bit further. But I want to make sure that people understand. I'm going to show you something here, folks. And I want everybody to look at the graphics I'm about to show you. And for those of you that are on some of the radio programs and the podcasts we do that are taped and you run them on those, we'll go ahead and we'll read them out to you. But I want to show you starting with week 1 through week 4. Okay? When you look at this, I want you to look at Sam Darnold. He was awesome the first 3.5 games. 24 of 35 in game 1. 279 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 sack. Remember that 1 sack, folks. 1 sack. Game 2, 20, and they won. Game 2, they win. 26 of 38, 305 yards, okay? 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, 2 sacks. Okay, 1 sack the first game, 2 sacks the second game. The next game, they win. Sam is 23 of, I think that's supposed to be 23 of 34. 304 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, no interceptions. Is anybody following along here? Okay? 3 sacks. What happened that game? Another sack? Well, if you remember, game 3 is the game where Christian McCaffrey got hurt. if everybody remembers that. That one player does not make a team. I don't care what anyone says, but it is a big part of the team. But I want you to look at the position more than the name of the player playing that position. What happened? Week 4, he does not play versus Dallas, okay? Or he gets hurt right then. Chuba Hubbard has an unbelievable game, is rushing the ball, unbelievable. Sam Darnold is 26 of 39, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 5 sacks. Remember that, 2 interceptions, 5 sacks. Total rushing yards, 113. So game 1, okay, 111 yards rushing total. Game 2, rushing yards only 89, but Christian McCaffrey's playing. Week 3, I'm not sure, I don't have it here, but week 3, 117 yards, and then week 4, 113 yards. So, folks, imagine this. Those first games, why did you get 5 sacks all of a sudden versus Washington? Okay? What happened? What's going on? Sam Darnold right there started going downhill. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, during the Dallas game, if you remember, a lot of us complained. Why did they stop the running game? Chuba Hubbard was pushing the ball versus Dallas. Then all of a sudden, you just stop because you fall behind. What do? Every time this team falls behind, they switch their game plan. They think they automatically got to change something instead of maybe just realizing they beat you on 1 play or 2 plays. But what do they got to do? They got to change things up. They go away from the running game, even though Coach Rule says he wants to run more. Okay? What happens when you stop the running game, folks? When you stop the running game and you become a one-dimensional team, the defense can key on the pass and key on rushing because they know they're not going to get beat with the run. You're not going to run through them because you're not going to run the ball. So you either get them, the quarterback, or you don't. So they're applying all these blitz packages, all these different stunts to go after your quarterback because they know you don't have the gonads to run the football. And this is proven true. The more you don't run the football, the more sacks you give up and the more pressure you have on your quarterback. That's what's been going on with this football team. They're not using the running back position. They're making excuses for not using the running back position. And every team out there knows that and is putting pressure on, whether it's Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, PJ Walker, I don't care who you put in there. At the end of the day, they know you're not going to run the ball, so they can use 100% of their energy and ability to go after that quarterback with an offensive line that is not good to begin with. But that's the same offensive line you went with the first 3 games. Now, I'm in no way, shape, or form sticking up for this offensive line, but if you stay with me here, folks, you'll understand when you have a balanced offense, okay, even the weakest of offensive lines can still do an adequate job to get you to win football games. But when you switch it over and now you don't have anybody or believe you don't have anybody and do not use anybody to run the football, you become a one-dimensional team and everybody will destroy your offensive line because they understand that your offensive line is moving forward to block and they just got to push them out of the way and open holes for their linebackers to sack the heck out of you. That's what's wrong. Why any coach on that staff can't figure that out, I don't understand. And to further prove my point, folks, listen to this. Week 8, we beat the Falcons 19-13. We won. What was that? I think our 4th win of the season, okay? What did we do, Larry? But why? If we're not doing it, because we rushed for 200 yards. We rushed for 203 yards, okay? Sam threw no interceptions and got sacked 0 times in that game. Why? Because they were not expecting us to run, so they would give in to us, run, commit, and we would gain yardage rushing the football, and we did not stop rushing the football. 203 yards, okay? Let's go ahead and prove my point a little bit further. Week 10, Panthers at Arizona, 34-10. We win. McCaffrey was back. Oh, no, they know we now have a guy in the backfield that can run the football and catch the football and make things happen. What a big difference. Guess what? P.J. Walker was our quarterback. P.J. Walker was 22 of 29, 167 yards, 1 stupid interception, but it's still an interception. No sacks. My point is proven, folks. If you rush the football and continue with the rush and balance out that offense, this is a proven fact that the more you pass, the better the defense will gear towards it. In order to win, you have to have that balanced offense. There's no team in football, very few, that can win without a running game. Okay? And I've been saying this and saying this. Point is proven. I hope you all understand it. What happened after those games? They stopped running the football. They stopped running the football. Probably the first time I seen them run the football again like they had been since week 10 was this weekend, which was week 15 versus the Buffalo Bills. Okay, and what did we see? 151 yards rushing, okay? Cam had opportunities, okay? Didn't necessarily take advantage of a lot of the opportunities. But with him rushing the ball, Hubbard rushing the ball. Now, don't forget, folks, whether it's Newton, Donald rushes the football too. Remember, he was leading the league after the first 5 weeks in rushing touchdowns, okay? So, what does it prove to you, folks? You got to keep with the run and balance it out, because people think, well, you got to balance it out to fool the defense. No, you got to balance it out to help your offensive line so that every play they're not getting the crap beat out of them because they know you are passing the football. You know, they stopped running the football versus Buffalo. Now, remember, they very well would have been in that game. I'm telling everybody out there, whether you believe me or not, because some of you are such haters of Matt Rule or lovers of Cam Newton, however you want to say it, but we were in that football game in Buffalo. We didn't have a kicker, and it did change the entire complexity. I think most people would have to agree with me during that game. It definitely did. And what happens? Okay, we go ahead. We have to stop running the football. Now they're, all over us. They're sacking us because they know we're passing. The offense works if you keep the play calling correct. You have to balance that offense. You know what? I don't care if you're playing Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New England Patriots, the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't care who you're playing. If you can run the ball and pass the ball, balance it out, you're going to be successful in one of those areas. And then what you do during the game, when you feel them leaning back towards the rushing game and containing you, you utilize the pass and you trick them up with play action. It is not rocket scientists. Yet the coaches on this team are having issues with it, and I'm not sure why. Now, I'm not going to sit here and debate again tonight whether Matt Rule stays or Matt Rule doesn't stay. At the end of the day, if you don't utilize the play calling that I'm talking about and the type of offense, you will never win in the NFL. And why I can figure that out and they cannot figure that out is completely baffling me. Okay? It's completely baffling me, and I just don't understand as I look at a couple of my different sheets of paper here to go ahead and do that. Number two, before I go to a quick station break here, okay, I mentioned it before. I just went over this thing of what's wrong with the Panthers. Sam Darnold is your starting quarterback. Cam Newton will not be back next year. Folks, if you're dreaming and trying to fantasize that he's going to be back next year, you're just doing yourself no good. It's a downright conclusion. I would be very surprised. Sam Darnold, we still owe $18 million unless, and I said this last night on the show, you're going after an offensive lineman in round one unless you get your franchise quarterback at the spot when you're available to pick. That means if Kenny Pickett is available, you pick him. If not, you go after an offensive lineman because there's no other quarterback that I would consider a franchise quarterback in this upcoming draft other than Kenny Pickett. You can get Kenny Pickett, you get him, and then you deal with the offensive line through free agency. But first thing you got to do, and first thing Matt Rule has to do, which I cannot understand what the heck is going on in this guy's head, is that you have to go ahead and you have to give Brady Christensen and Deontay Brown a try. Deontay Brown, 6'4", 350 pounds. Brady Christensen probably has done the best job of any lineman on your team, 6'6", 305 pounds. Okay, you have to let them play the last 3 games to know if you have what it takes at certain positions. Brady Christensen can fill a void next year. Deontay Brown can fill a void next year. You put Moten with them. Now you only need two more good offensive linemen to help solidify that offensive line. But if you don't play Brady Christensen and you keep playing these guys like Irving and who the heck's the other guy? Whoever they're playing over there. I just went blank. But you keep playing someone like these other guys, John Miller. That's who I was thinking of. Guys, put them on the bench. Let Christensen play. Let Brown play. You play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the next 2 of 3 weeks. No better defensive line to really see what these guys have in them. You know, if they perform at a level that is able to handle the Buccaneers, they can handle anybody in the league. But you are never going to know what you got on your offensive line and why the hell Matt Rule has not instilled Brady Christensen and Deontay Brown in the games for a whole game. I will not understand either. That is the part that bothers me about Matt Rule. You got to let some of these younger guys get experience and see what you have. You have to see what you have. And he doesn't use a lot of the younger guys. You know, even the Terrence Marshall, the wide receiver when he was out there, he doesn't utilize them a lot. You have to see what you have so you know what's expendable if you have something good. Now you go ahead, you have Brady Christensen, you got Moten, you got Brown, 3 of them. Next thing you know, you got 10 or 11 good free agent offensive linemen that are available to you come free agency, like Ryan Jensen or Alex Kapp are just 2 names I know of that will be free agents from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You imagine those 3 guys and you had a Ryan Jensen. I'll tell you what, if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm coming down to Charlotte, okay? Just because you got Ryan Jensen on the team. I mean, you have to make these moves, okay? You got to see what you got and whether you hang on to them or not. And I guarantee you, if you play Brown and you play Christensen, you're going to be awfully surprised at what you got in these 2 guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about 5 minutes away from having Wayne Randazzo on with us. We're going to be talking about the New York Mets, who had an unbelievable, offseason this year, besides the strike. But, today they introduced Bug Showalter, the 65-year-old manager who has won 1,551 games, lost 1,517. winning over 50% of his games. He's 3-time AL Manager of the Year. They signed Eduardo Escobar, Max Scherzer, Sterling Marte. They got in the offseason. This is a Mets team that's looking under their new ownership, Stephen Cohen, to win and to win now in the Big Apple. And it's going to be very interesting. Buck's a good man. Buck knows how to win. He's coached for the Yankees, Baltimore, Arizona, and Texas. He's one of a few managers now that actually have managed both the Yankees and Mets, or once he does manage the Mets. Casey Stengel, I believe, was one of them that did it. I know Joe Torre did it at one time, and I think Yogi Berra as well. So quite a few people that have done this before, and, looking forward, I think the Mets have the nucleus of a good team. Probably need a little bit more starting pitcher because after DeGrom and Scherzer, I don't know what they really have after that point. Their bullpen is solid. Their, infield is solid. Maybe need another outfielder, but we'll talk to Wayne about that, and Wayne will go ahead and hopefully fill us in all that in about 3 minutes. But let's go ahead, folks. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to play-by-play announcer of the New York Mets, Wayne Randazzo. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports, when it's away from having the play-by-play announcer of the New York Mets, Wayne Randazzo, with us. But, we talked a lot in the first half of our show tonight. We went ahead and we talked a lot about the Carolina Panthers, what they need to fix it. And I hope you really all enjoyed that, because I did actually a lot of work on that, a lot of statistics to make sure that I could get the information as fluently to you as possible. And, hopefully you guys understood it. Look forward to any comments. Want to remind you, we do have the comment section open. As always, please feel free to go ahead and leave comments, as we are minutes away from having Wayne Randazzo joining us live on Frankly Speaking Sports. So we should be getting him momentarily here, folks. Let me make sure he knows we are ready. And hopefully he'll be joining us any second here. So that's good news for those. Within the next minute, he should be joining us. And then after that, we'll talk about the New York Mets. Then we're going to open it up to questions. Want to remind everybody, I know it's tough to see the commercial that we just did, but tomorrow night, a very, very special show for us. As you all know, I used to cover the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and tomorrow night, it is a great honor, thrill, and privilege to be back on Crew Life for one time, to go ahead and have my good buddy, Coach Marvin Bell, joining us. So we'll be airing also on Crew Life on Facebook. Looking forward to that. We used to team up a lot, do some shows together, and boy, oh boy, am I really looking forward to that opportunity tomorrow night to sit down with Coach Bell. We'll talk about the upcoming game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are depleted. They just signed tonight Le'Veon Bell because Leonard Fournette is now out, and he could be out for the regular, at least for the rest of the regular season. You got Levante David, who is hurt. He'll be out for that game. You got Mike Evans, and you got Chris Godwin. So this is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, that is beat up. And we talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll go ahead and talk about them, obviously, a lot more tomorrow in detail. But, I always talk about it's the team playing the best going into the playoffs. And last year, if you remember, it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who were playing the best football going into the playoffs, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But the one thing they did that is going to be difficult this year, obviously, as we can tell, is they stayed healthy last year. This year, they don't have the health right now. So it's coming at a bad time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers towards the end of the year, where a lot of these guys, we don't know how much time they're going to have to go ahead and, heal themselves, and if they'll be ready for the playoffs. So even before that, Carolina Panthers, can they go ahead and do some of the things we talked about? It doesn't take a personnel change. It takes a game plan to go ahead and beat Tampa Bay. And we're going to find out if they can put together the right game plan, which I pretty much I laid it out here on Frankly Speaking Sports a few minutes ago. So let me see what's going on here, folks. See if okay, I know Wayne is trying to come on now, so hopefully he will be on in a couple of minutes here. Let me go ahead and make sure we have. Okay, we don't want that to be 2 nights in a row now. So give me a second here, folks, as I try to find out what's going on here. And Wayne just texted me a little while ago, so not sure. I'm sorry, trying to type and do a show is, that's considered multi-talented for me. What's going on here? All right. There we go. Now we can get it back. All right. But like I said, any minute now we should have Wayne on. There we go. Let's see. All right. So let me try this one more time. If not, we'll keep it going, folks. All right, Wayne, we are ready. All right. So hopefully Wayne will be right with us. He's coming on. Supposedly he got the message. Let's find out. I'm just checking, like I said, a couple things here, folks. I wish I knew how to type. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and hopefully when we come back, we'll have Wayne Randazzo. We'll be back right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Well, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. Sorry about that, folks. Last night I know we had trouble with our guest. There was something that happened personally, couldn't come on. We're expecting Wayne Randazzo. He texted me about 30 minutes ago and said he got the link and everything, so I'm not really sure what is going on. So I do apologize. Actually, he just got my message, so hopefully he's coming on right now. I'm waiting back for a reply from him, but we are expecting any moment now, folks, to have Wayne Randazzo on with us. So let me just get all my stuff lined up here, and hopefully within a few minutes we will have him on as we do now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. Want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. Let's do this.
Beat the Mets, step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kitties, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really rocking that ball, hitting those home runs over the wall.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, baseball season is almost upon us, hopefully anyway, about 2 months away, and it's my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to have now with us the play-by-play announcer for the New York Mets. Let's welcome in Wayne Randazzo. Wayne, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good, Larry. How are you?
Wayne, I'm doing good, but I'll tell you what, New York Met fans, I know are feeling a lot better today with the signing of a brand new manager in Buck Showalter. What's your opinion of Buck? I mean, Buck's coached in New York. There's been several managers that have coached both the Mets and the Yankees. Joe Torre, Casey Stengel, Yogi Berra being a few that come to the top of my head. What do you think about Buck, and how do you think he makes the New York Mets a winner?
Yeah, I think Sandy Alderson, said it best earlier that for the guys who were available, this was as close to a perfect hire as you could get for the Mets. I feel like this team really needed some guidance and some leadership from what happened last season. It seemed to be missing at times whether that was because of the players in the clubhouse or the right fit in the manager's role, whatever the case may be. It seemed like the Mets were lacking leadership in certain areas, and they've done a lot to address that, not only with a new manager in Buck Showalter, but new general manager. Billy Epler comes in, and all the guys they've signed so far all seem like guys who are going to be very helpful in the clubhouse. Guys like Max Scherzer, who we know what his intensity brings to the table, and of course his Hall of Fame talent. Eduardo Escobar's been nothing but a great clubhouse presence throughout his entire career. Same for Mark Canha and Starling Marte. So they really emphasized making this a better community for the 2022 season. And I think Buck Showalter really brings it all together as the guy to really lead the way in the dugout and in the clubhouse.
Now, when you look at this team, Wayne, before we get into the team, because it looks very exciting for the New York Mets, but I want to talk about something that is not necessarily dear to your heart or my heart, and that's the current baseball lockout that is currently going on. I mean, we know what opinions are, but do you think, right now it bothers me that it doesn't even seem like they're serious about getting together and putting this thing to rest, and we're sitting basically less than 2 months away from pitchers and catchers reporting. What's your opinion of this lockout? And, obviously it's a guess, but do you think we'll be playing baseball come February, or do you think we'll be on strike?
Well, it's a lockout's a little different than a strike. The owners have locked the players out. It's a move they didn't necessarily have to make, but that they did, hoping to create some urgency that you're talking about with regard to, making these negotiations and getting things done on time. The real urgency will come if nothing is done by February 1st. I think they'll have the entire month of January to talk and get on the same page, and hopefully they'll use that time. They really haven't done a whole lot of talking or negotiating since the lockout began on December 1st or December 2nd. So they really need some time to get together and do what it takes to make a deal before February 1st. Now, if it does get to that point, then the real urgency will kick in, because then you'll start hearing more about missing spring training games. And nobody really wants to do that. I think that the players realize that they need as much spring training this year as possible, especially coming off what's been a very unusual year and a half in Major League Baseball and throughout the world. But, I think that they really want to get into camp on time and give themselves every opportunity to get ready for the 2022 season. I don't think the owners want to lose anything either, even spring training money at this point. The spring training revenue is good for the teams. They sell a lot of tickets. They sell a lot of merchandise at spring training. There's some TV games. It's not quite the regular season, but there's something to be done as far as spring training goes. And if the players insist on a full spring training before the season starts, well, they don't want to lose any time as far as the regular season goes. That's for sure. So I don't think there will be too much of a cut into spring training. I certainly don't think there will be any cut into the regular season, but you never know.
Now, Wayne, how important, what happened 2 years ago, the bad taste with the negotiations during COVID, put a real bad taste into a lot of fans' mouth with what was going on. They really didn't care if it was the owner's fault, the players' fault. They cared that there was no baseball at a time where we really needed baseball to take our mind off it. How important is it, do you think, for baseball, for their fans to get back on the field in time?
Obviously, that's the most important thing. At least it should be to the players and to the owners, is to make sure they don't alienate any more fans. It was difficult with 2020 and how things were going to go, especially without fans in the stands. It was nice to have baseball, but it really didn't feel the same having all those games without fans in attendance, all the way up until the Championship Series and the World Series, when there was at least partial crowds in Texas. But, I think that now that things are able to, from a fan standpoint, be normal and be able to be at the games and have sellout crowds, and hopefully that's still the case come April, that, we want to have a full opening day. When's the last time baseball had a full opening day? 2019. So it'll have been 3 years since there was a real opening day in Major League Baseball with full crowds everywhere throughout the country. And I think baseball owes its fans, after what's been really a tumultuous time, to get out there and be available for the entire season and give fans that opening day experience and do it right, for a baseball season that we really haven't seen in a couple of years.
Now, you talked about Max Scherzer a little bit earlier. Now it puts together the New York Mets, without a doubt, have the best 1-2 punch of a starting rotation. Obviously, Max Scherzer, Jake DeGrom, you can't say enough about those two. But after that, in the starting rotation, they still need a little help, don't they, going into 2022?
Yeah, I think that there are some things that they could still improve on, including starting pitching. Even though they did get Scherzer, there's still you still need to have some depth. We've seen that time and again with the Mets. You really need, for 162 games, to have 8 to 12 starting pitchers that you're going to use. Now, some of those guys will be depth pieces in your own organization. Guys like David Peterson and Tyler McGill stand out as a couple of guys who were fairly impressive as rookies the last 2 seasons, and maybe they'll have a chance to be part of that depth. They should. But, behind Jake and Max, now you have Carrasco, you have Taijuan Walker, and, you've got a starting rotation that looks good on paper. But I still think you need a little bit more in the depth department and really be able to find that key number 5 starter, even if it's a guy that maybe you're taking a chance on or might be coming back from an injury. Just to have some options would be good for them in the rotation. They've really done nothing to their bullpen. Aaron Loop left, signed a good contract with the Angels. Jerry's Familia is still a free agent. So they got some holes in the bullpen they need to tighten up. And I'd still like to see them get one more bat. I think that they need one more guy, maybe somebody who could play the outfield, or maybe somebody who's flexible. Billy Epler talked about the versatility. A lot of that points to Chris Bryant. I don't know if they want to make that big of a splash. Maybe. Bryant certainly will be able to hold down third base until those 2 young players are ready. Brett Beatty is supposed to be the third baseman of the future. Mark Vientos is not far away either. So Chris can hold down third, and then he can go play the outfield. Bryant's versatility gives you a lot of room to do whatever you want. And I'd love to see them get Chris. So we'll see. I don't know if that's the play necessarily or somebody else, but I think the Mets are still going to be pretty active once the lockout is over.
Now, you added, like you mentioned, Eduardo Escobar, 28 home runs last year, and an infielder. I mean, Alonso's set at first. Lindor is probably set at shortstop. How do you see him fit into the mix? You still got McNeil on the team. You still got J.D. Davis. How does Escobar fit into that infield?
Well, don't forget you have Robinson Cano coming back as well. He's still got 2 more years on his contract, and he'll be back with the 2022 team. So, Escobar is an interesting piece because he primarily plays third base, but he can play second base too.
Yep.
So I think really what he gives you is more versatility. If the roster is as it is right now, if Davis is still there or if McNeil is still there, you could move Escobar between third and second. And some days if you want McNeil in there at second base, Escobar could play third. If you want Davis in there at third, Escobar could play second. So his versatility, plus he's a switch hitter, he really does bring a lot to the table as far as being able to move around and produce. I think the Mets have done a good job getting guys who can be valuable to them as far as playing multiple positions. Mark Canha can do that as well. And I think that's something the Mets really are going to lean on. Even if it's a DH league, it seems like the mixing and matching will be part of what Buck Showalter will have to do as the team's manager.
Now, we mentioned about outfield a little bit. Sterling Marte, terrific pickup. I love that pickup. How do you see the outfield panning out for the Mets come opening day?
They really were impressed with the way Brandon Nimmo played center field last year. They backed him up a little bit. Marte's faster than Nimmo, and maybe Marte's the better center fielder. Marte's getting up there in years too. He's 33. So he's not exactly a young man out there in center field, but I'm sure he can handle it. He played it in Oakland, which is a much bigger outfield than New York, and Miami as well is a bigger outfield. So I think Marte can handle center field. Just depends what they want to do with Nimmo. I think whichever one doesn't play center will play left, and that kind of leaves right field open for Mark Canha to get some opportunities out there. But I think that's really the position where they still need to look around and feel like they can fill. Now, McNeil can play left field. Dominic Smith is still on the roster. He could play left field, and you could move Nimmo or Marte to right as well. So one of those corner outfield positions, I think, is where you might have some space to find that bat, or they could just go with what they've got. But I do think that the Mets really want to go into the regular season feeling like they've got a pretty fully loaded team. I don't think that they want to mess around with, we can make a move later. I think they want to feel like they've got it covered from the beginning of the year. And then, of course, at the midseason point, you can figure out what you might need. Maybe an injury popped up, you need to replace somebody. That's fine. But DeGrom has a chance to opt out of his contract after 2022. So you only have one guaranteed season, one, with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer in the starting rotation together. So you've got to make the most of it. You have to try everything you can to win in 2022 with those two guys anchoring you.
Yeah. Now, last year, disappointing year. They started off great, up all the way to the All-Star break. Then Atlanta just took off with making some unbelievable trades over there. Sapopoulos just went crazy, brought some guys in, and they won the division. What went wrong in the second half of the season for the New York Mets?
Well, a lot of things. I think the injury certainly caught up. DeGrom didn't pitch at all after the All-Star break. That was important. You could have made the case he was the first half MVP with the way that he was pitching and even the way he was swinging the bat during his starts. Had the ridiculously low ERA, a record-setting type season could have been in front of DeGrom, had he finished it. But that's not the way it turned out. He didn't pitch at all in the second half, and that was a huge piece the Mets were missing. They never got Noah Syndergaard back. Carlos Carrasco, when he was out there, wasn't particularly effective. The starting pitching completely disappeared for them. The starters only won between over a 2-month period. They won only like 5 games in the mid to late parts of the season. Marcus Stroman, I think, did a good job, and Taijuan Walker fell off in the second half. So they really lost it as far as their starting pitching was concerned. Hitting was a concern all year. The guys never really got going. Conforto never picked it up. Dominic Smith never picked it up. The guys that they really were counting on. Lindor had a good second half when healthy, but then he spent some time on the injured list with that oblique injury that cost them. Javier Baez ended up being their best player for the last month or so of the season after they picked him up in a trade, but that wasn't the way it was designed to be, and they just didn't have enough firepower. Frankly, if you look back at their record in August and September, they were playing at a 100 loss or more clip. I mean, they were not only a team that wasn't competitive in the second half, they were one of the worst teams in baseball in the second half, and it was a complete change from how they looked early on.
How big has the new ownership under Stephen Cohen been for the New York Mets?
Say that again?
How big has the new ownership been for the New York Mets under Stephen Cohen?
Yeah, well, I think you're seeing it all the time now. I mean, they never would have made that play for Scherzer, you wouldn't think, under previous ownership. Maybe hardly any ownership would have made that type of play for Scherzer. It's the richest contract in baseball history for a single season. He's going to make $43 million this year. That's way more than Garrett Cole making with the Yankees, who had the previous high. So being able to go above and beyond is something that I don't know many owners in baseball, whether it's previous owners or current owners, could have done such a thing. Not to mention that they're not done yet. They've signed a few other players. They gave Marte a big contract. They're just able to compete at a higher level. Mark Canha probably got 3 or 4 more million than he was expecting. Same for Eduardo Escobar. Not huge numbers in the grand scheme of things for a baseball team, but to those individual players it was, and it made them sign with the Mets. Same thing with Starling Marte. Maybe got a little bit more than he would have elsewhere. Scherzer got a lot more than anybody's ever made in the history of the game over the course of 1 year. So it's helped out in those ways as we expected it to. But I think it's also helping out in the ways that are behind the scenes more. They're being able to fill out their scouting and their analytics departments. They've got a full-size analytics roster now as compared to where they were a couple of years ago when they had virtually nobody running that department. I mean, they had 1 or 2 guys, and that was it, well behind what other teams in baseball were doing. So you're seeing it in those areas, and I'm sure there will be many other ways where Steve Cohen's big bucks comes in to change the outlook of this team. But first and foremost is how they put together the team on the field. And I think he's committed to being a winner. I don't think he was very happy with the way last season turned out. And it was just a really tough second half for that club. And I think it really fell apart in an unexpected way. And I think Steve Cohen's going to try to do everything he can to make sure he never sees anything like that again.
We're talking to Wayne Randazzo, play-by-play announcer for the New York Mets. Couple more questions before we let you run. Safe to say, Wayne, that the Atlanta Braves are still the team to beat in the East?
Well, they really need, and I don't know why they haven't. Maybe they'll sign somebody else, but they need to figure out what they're doing with Freddie Freeman. I can't imagine that they're going to let Freddie go somewhere else. Freddie has been a part of that organization for over a decade. He was a huge part of them winning the World Series last year and a big part of their constant success. They've been a pretty good team last 5 or 6 years, and Freddie's been in the middle of all of that. So, if you let him go, how does that change everything? How does that change the clubhouse? How does that change how the team feel? I think it would just be a shock if Freddie Freeman is not back with Atlanta. But let's say that he is, and he does go back to the Braves and all is well there. We don't really know what Mike Soroka is going to look like. You assume that they'll have a full year of Acuna, but, they're still going to be hurting for starting pitching. They're still going to need to figure things out in terms. Some of those guys they brought in during the trade deadline are not going to be back. Marcell Ozuna could be back. So it's going to be a little bit of a different look than how they finished the year going into the season. That said, they are the defending world champion. They've won this division 3 years in a row. So, yeah, I would say as long as they bring Freeman back or sign someone else that's as good, which there aren't many people as good, but you can sign someone else to play first base, then I think that they'll still be the favorite in the division. But it'll be hard to pick against the Mets, or at least we know that the Mets are going to give Atlanta everything that they have going into next year.
Now, Wayne, before I let you run, I have to ask you this question. It's been long overdue, as many people know. Gil Hodges finally getting in to the Hall of Fame. I mean, talk about what it means to New York Met fans everywhere to have this day finally come to tuition.
Yeah, I sit next to a guy doing the Mets games on radio that's been a Mets fan the entire history of the organization, remembers Gil Hodges on the original Mets team in 1962, and of course, really became the baseball fan that he is now because of Gil Hodges' 1969 Mets, and that's how he rose. And I know that it meant the world to Howie. We've talked about it on the air a lot, how it was a crime that Gil Hodges hadn't been in the Hall of Fame yet, how he had been very close on a Veterans Committee vote several years ago and was one vote shy. And there are really, was no reason to keep Gil Hodges out of the Hall of Fame this long. His wife is still alive, although she's now in her 90s. And, there were few opportunities left, really, for Joan to be a part of this Hall of Fame ceremony, which it looks like she will be. Gil's son, Gil Hodges Jr., was a prominent part of the 1969 team as well as a bat boy and as someone who was around that club. So it's for the family. It's huge. They get to enjoy this day together. And for Mets fans, well, I think the ones that go back to those times, it means everything to them. And that's really what the Hall of Fame should be about. It should be about the fans, as stately and as respected as Gil Hodges was, and he 100% deserves his place in Cooperstown. I think that there's still a part of me that wants to see Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and some of those guys get into the Hall of Fame as well because of their place in baseball history and as the clear best players in the game during their time. I mean, you talk about performance-enhancing drugs. If Mike Trout took PEDs, would he be as good as Barry Bonds on them? I don't know. It's tough to say because Barry was an exceptional player. And, yeah, maybe he did stuff that he shouldn't have near the end of his career, and it took him to new heights and home run records and all that. But I think those guys belong in the Hall of Fame, and in part because of the fans. I think it really takes away from the fans to not have the people that they loved and admired in the Hall of Fame And for Mets fans of a certain age, and for even Dodgers fans of a certain age, that person is Gil Hodges, and I'm glad he's going in.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, Wayne, I want to thank you very, very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's the holidays to join us here on Frankly Speaking Sports. And I want to wish you, obviously, you and your family, a very, very happy holiday.
All right, Larry. Thanks a lot. You too.
All right. Be safe, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that was Wayne Randazzo, play-by-play announcer for the New York Mets. A reminder, tomorrow night, our last show of the year. That's right. We have tomorrow night, Frankly Speaking Panthers, beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And boy, oh boy, do we not have just a great show for North Carolina fans, but also for Tampa Bay fans, as both myself and Coach Bell will be getting together to talk about the upcoming game between the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On behalf of all of us here at Frankly Speaking Sports, we'll see you tomorrow night, and happy holidays to you all.